What would you do if a loved one began acting uncharacteristically? Can good intentions lead to terrible outcomes? Could a family have prevented a great tragedy? Today, we test the believability of the Exorcism of Kennedy Ife.
Welcome to Believing the Bizarre,
Where we dive into the unknown and the unusual
and tell you whether or not we find it believable.
That is right. Tuesday, it is a dark
Tuesday
and stormy night.
Yes, right now.
Right now.
This is like the perfect conditions for a scary story.
Yes, it's dark, it's stormy, lightning, and hot.
Yeah. I don't know what the last.
It is hot.
It is warm because we are in the attic.
Yeah, just back for this, just for old time's sake, for fun.
Just for funsies.
Nothing to do with children.
Or timing of things happening in our lives.
Yeah, so Porch Rocker happened last weekend, so that's not really worth mentioning, except for the fact that I hope it went well, and if anyone actually traveled to come see us, then you're awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. It's going to be a good time. I know that it was a good time. It's so hard to do these things
deep down
in the past.
I know it will be and was a good time.
Exactly, yeah.
Also, I want to front load this. So I was back in my neck of the woods last weekend, not like this most recent weekend, but 2 weekends ago. Last weekend of the recording of this episode.
You mean Upper Ohio?
Yep.
Okay.
And I got a crazy email, and so I want to touch on that and talk about that at the end of this episode.
Yes, please.
So if you want a little bit of extra juice, or juicy, as my son says.
Oh, okay.
If you want a little bit of that, stick around after the main episode. But with that said, let's get into the Exorcism of Kennedy Ife. So this takes place in 2016 in Enfield, North London.
Enfield.
England. Like the Enfield poltergeist.
That's exactly what I was thinking about.
Sources include BBC.com.
Of course it does.
Medium.
Oh, okay.
They were I'm like part of it, because the rest was like, oh, this is how much you can read for free. But I'm like, no.
That sucks.
Although shout out, okay, I'm not trying to take money out of any other company's wallet, but if there is a piece of content hidden behind a paywall, if you go to 12.io, or it's like 12foot.io, it's either 12.io or 12foot.io.
I don't know.
But you put the link in there and it tries to break the paywall.
Oh.
So some of them, like LA Times, The Athletic, like the big names, they still don't, you can't read them. But sometimes you get like an article from some type of journal, online journal, and it'll actually break the paywall and you can read it.
Oh, wow.
The reason, if you want to, I know this isn't that exciting. They still want a version of it to rank. The only way for it to rank is it has to be read by Google. So like they have a version of it you can read, but then the version that they put front facing, you have to pay for. So I think 12foot.io.
So, like try to find the hidden version.
The hidden one. Yeah.
That's interesting.
So, but I didn't do that with Medium, so I got what I got. Mysterious Universe and Daily Star. Those are my sources. And your little tip for the day, I think it's 12foot.io. But anyway.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So we're talking about 26-year-old Kennedy Ife, who was a successful IT consultant, but did live with his family.
Okay. I mean, that's fine. You're 26. That's not a big deal.
No. It's like the way that they emphasize is like, oh, he's very wealthy, he's very successful, but it's like the whole family lives together. Maybe that's just the dynamic in England, or maybe that's just the dynamic of this family, which is fine. There's nothing. I feel like until recently, most families did stay together. And by recent, I mean like the last 30, 40, 50 years. But
I believe you're right.
Yeah. So in this house was Kennedy's mother, Josephine, his father, Kenneth, and his brothers, Roy, Harry, Collins, Samuel, and Daniel.
So is our character a junior? In his name.
Kenneth and Kennedy?
Oh, you know what? Cut that. Never mind.
I thought you meant high school.
No.
Damn. I said he was successful. Just kidding. There's nothing wrong being 26 and in high school. So according to reports, they were a well-liked and friendly family in the neighborhood. But all of that started changing in August of 2016, which is not that long ago. I think this is one of our most recent episodes in terms of things that have happened.
Yeah.
Ever. Yeah, Baker Mayfield obviously was. Yeah,
yeah, but that wasn't real.
it was just a meteorite, and that's why he's down in Tampa. So in August of 2016, Kennedy started telling his family that his throat was hurting.
Okay.
And at this point, obviously, it's no big deal because we've all had sore throats.
Yeah, strep throat is a
really sucks when you do podcasting.
Yeah.
Or singing, I assume.
Yeah, but sometimes that happens like perfectly and you sound beautiful. That happened to you a couple times. You just sound great.
When I had a sore throat?
Yeah.
I don't remember this. I don't think that's true.
That might not be
My
true.
voice is weak even when I don't have a sore throat. You remember the what's it called? The
throat coat?
No, it's where you not gassing's a bad thing. Steaming. Or you remember the steamer?
Yeah.
That was I have a weak voice. But anyway, like we've all been there. Everyone's had a sore throat, so obviously no one's overreacting. Just drink some tea, rest, you'll be fine, right? But this was not the case for Kennedy. He ended up going to the doctor because, as Kennedy put it, this wasn't a typical sore throat. He said it felt like something was crawling around in his throat.
I was going to make that joke. The demons are trying to crawl out of it, but...
That's creepy. Like, for someone to actually... Now, we don't know if that's something, if he was, using a metaphor.
Yeah.
Or if he, actually truly...
Or if it's psychosomatic, even.
Yeah, it's just,
or
just using
is that the past tense, looking back, realizing?
No.
Okay.
No. This is... Pretty much all this stuff is in the moment. But either way, creepy. And they're a fairly religious family, too. So okay. I don't think they're thinking that at this point. I think even his family probably just thought he was exaggerating. But at that point, it's like, if he's going to say that, it's like, I'm so hungry I could eat a cow, right? Like, you're like, okay, let's get him to a restaurant. But in this case, like, let's get him to a doctor. So they visit a doctor and nothing happened. They didn't find anything strange or unusual. But very shortly after visiting the doctor, the throat pain persisted and Kennedy began displaying uncharacteristic mood swings.
So the doctor just looked at the throat and went, shrug emoji.
Well, he probably, or she, they probably determined that it was just a sore throat.
Okay.
I think it was nothing out of the unusual. Okay. Or nothing out of the usual.
There you go.
I think it was just, it's a sore throat, get some Ricola. Ricola.
I'd be mad if I went to the doctor for something and they're just like, I don't know. Sucks.
I'm so pro doctor, but I will say that they're like they're batting about a 250 right now. Like I would say more often than not, it's like try this. Did you try? But I understand it's hard. It's being a medical professional is hard, and they're one of the few people probably with more debt than me. So
it's nice that they're out there. It's like
they make me feel better.
Yeah, it's like when you're driving, someone's out there too.
Yeah. It's really the nurses that get they're the ones that are doing everything. The doctor comes in, it's like, oh, how's things going? How are the kids? You don't have kids? All right, cool. Up looks like a sore throat. Here's a Tic Tac, kid.
Yeah.
Thanks. You want me to sign something? You can do it. Just you draw a couple of circles. Just kidding. I'm very pro doctor, pro medicine. But anyway, so he comes back, family's like whatever, but he starts behaving. He's a very chill dude. He was a very chill, laid back dude. But now he's starting to have these violent outbursts. Screaming, every little thing seems to be ticking him off, very frustrated, and it's seemingly coming out of nowhere. And this transitioned to other ailments too, which included breathing problems and even stomach pains. So throat soreness, stomach pains, trouble breathing, and now violent outbursts.
So how fast is this happening?
Within a couple days.
Okay.
This is like days. This isn't like months or years. This is days.
Is coming on pretty quick.
It's pretty short. Oh, yeah. And it even started impacting his day-to-day life. That started deteriorating. His attendance at his IT job began failing. He started skipping work. He wasn't eating much. He was starting to lose weight. And his family started noticing this extreme behavior, which, like I said, was very much different than how they knew their son to be. So his father, Kenneth, chalked it up to birds in the wall.
Sure, yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. That's an inside joke if you've been here for a minute. No. His father, Kenneth, thought that his sore throat and kind of his behavior was because he wasn't getting adequate sleep. Which, honestly, I can see his point because, when you have sleep deprivation, you can become irritable. Mm-hmm. I think in his mind, it was like, okay, he's suffering the sore throat. It's probably hard to fall asleep. When something's nagging you like that, and it's not like Like your arm, if your arm is broken or hurts, I guarantee that sucks. But like your throat is so like every time you swallow, right? Like it's like when your nose is plugged. There's just those ailments that are like, even if they're minute, if it affects you almost every second of the day, it just reminds you like this sucks. This sucks.
Like whenever you're sick, you envy the time where you can breathe through your nose.
And you know what? That's a really good point. And I recommend everybody listening right now, if you can breathe in through your nose and it's not stuffy and you don't have an ear infection and you're breathing okay, just take a moment and be like, this is nice.
Yeah, I'm glad I can do this.
And for those of you that aren't in that situation, that sucks. So he's like, okay, he's not getting enough sleep. He's irritable, probably from the sore throat. And that's causing, I mean, it makes sense. It's causing the mood swings. He's not eating right. That could be affecting his sleep. So they're just chalking it up to that. And I get the whole total not sleep thing. So everything starts escalating after Kennedy's father pretty much told his family that he just needed more sleep.
Yeah.
While sitting in his room, hunched over, one of Kennedy's siblings reported that they found him quietly talking to himself and even arguing with himself.
Okay. That's a red flag.
But the real creepy thing, so there were multiple voices.
Oh.
There was Kennedy's voice, clearly. There were some that were obviously Kennedy's voice, but in like a manipulated Kennedy's
like another
voice.
Register.
Like a voice that like if you were portraying a character or something like where it's obviously not someone's normal speaking voice, but it's them, but it's not the way they would normally talk.
Yeah.
But then there was also like a voice that wasn't. It seemed to the sibling that it did not come from Kennedy.
Oh boy.
So Kennedy's in a different way, and then something else. So concern turned to worried and fearful pretty quickly. Kennedy cursed at his parents more and more. He would have these tantrums, break items in the house, throw his food down on the floor. It was almost like he was kind of reverting to like these toddler behaviors.
I was just thinking, this is a 26-year-old man.
Yeah.
That's really scary.
Just lashing out, just very uncharacteristic. He also started becoming very pale and sickly. And this is only after a few days too, like a week tops.
Yeah.
Like not very long. So when trying to figure out what was wrong and how they could help him, Kennedy told his family that he could hear voices in his head and that there was a python slithering around inside of him.
Ooh, that's a very interesting description.
Yeah, because it goes, well, so it's like what he felt in his throat, like if you think about it, it's like it's making its way down to like the center of him.
It's also religious symbology.
The snake, yeah.
Symbology?
Symbolic.
Oh my God.
Yes. The study of symbology.
Yeah.
Biology of symbology.
It's a symbolic symbol of, evil.
Yeah. So, yeah. I think the symbolism is there. And also it's just like, it's the transitioning of like, it started exterior. It's worked its way into his mouth and his throat. And it's just working its way down to like him. It's just, so there's this one point where one of Kennedy's brothers found him standing in the hallway in his boxer briefs.
Boy.
He seemed to be in a daze. He had this really faraway look on his face, and his hand was inside his boxers. And when his brother asked if he was okay, he started mumbling incoherently and then said he wanted to cut off his own penis. And then he started mentioning the mark of the beast and 666. Then he started breaking down, crying, and he prayed for God to forgive him.
Huh.
So on a different day...
We're just going to skate past that, okay?
On a different day, Kennedy was lying in his bed when he told one of his brothers that there was a seed in his stomach which was growing into a writhing evil snake inside of his body. So shortly after both of these encounters, on top of all of his violent outbursts and mood change, and also the fact that he just does not look well, the family decided that something needed to be done. And they'd already taken the physician route with his throat, didn't work. So they decided to turn to their local minister, which, like I said, they're a religious family, so it wasn't like they had to put an ad out or anything like that. They knew people in the community that they could go to.
And that is just, it's scary.
So far, what are your thoughts, Charlie, with where we're at right now?
His brothers keep finding him in these terrible positions.
I would just stay in my room.
Yeah.
Just watch out for Kennedy. What's going on, Daniel? Not much, Samuel. Watch out for Kennedy.
Watch out for Kennedy.
What do you think, Colin? I don't know, Daniel and Samuel. But this is pretty, like, it's happening fast.
Yeah,
it's
really
intensifying,
fast.
Like
quickly. The muttering to himself and hearing these voices that aren't just his is just to me, that's the biggest flag. And from there, you go to the priest.
Well, that is what they did. The snake, it's so weird because, like, you don't know Kennedy. You don't know them the way, obviously, his family knew him. But it's like, if you imagine this being someone really in your family and they're, like, coming to you saying these things and you don't think they're joking.
Yeah.
It's just like, and it's such a jump. Maybe it's because they have a religious background that he's putting those thoughts, like somebody might be having if somebody maybe wasn't religious and didn't like the paranormal in ways like that, maybe they wouldn't come to these conclusions that he's coming to.
Maybe they come to more of a mental health situation.
Right. Or just like, I'm sick and I don't know what's wrong.
Yeah.
But also, like, he's hearing voices too. Like, he's not just creating these voices, and maybe they're saying, like, it's inside you. Mm-hmm. It's in your stomach. It's going to grow. Like, I don't know. Like, we don't know exactly
These
what
other things are putting those thoughts inside his head.
Yeah, it's just creepy stuff. Yeah.
On a dark and stormy night.
So let's get to what their local minister had to say. So their local minister was named Andrew.
Andrew?
I'm going to keep it funky with you. He had a last name that had, if you combine 15 states and combine all those letters, it started with a W.
Okay.
And it was just too much. Too many consonants.
Andrew, that's fine.
Too many vowels. It was, yeah. But he's not the main person in this anyway, so. Andrew W. He was a church volunteer at the Jesus Sanctuary Ministries.
Sounds like a cool pastor. I'm Andrew W.
Andrew Dubs.
Are you possessed?
We're handing out L's to demons. So he prayed for Kennedy, along with a couple other ministers named Brother Pete and Brother Amika. And here's a quote from Andrew on his initial reaction to everything that happened with Kennedy. Quote, "When I arrived at church, I was informed that we had been instructed to attend the address of Sister Josephine, to pray for Kennedy. Together, we arrived at Sister Joe's house at 10:59 p.m. Colin opened the door. We were ushered into the living room. I saw Kennedy lying down. He had a mobile phone in his hand. He seemed to be typing something on his phone, texting someone. I said, 'Hi.' He said, 'Hi.' He looked at me directly in the eyes. He looked unwell. He looked tired. As we began praying, Kennedy's father walked into the room with a man and a woman from a different church. I believed he was a pastor, but I'd never seen him before. Sister Joe asked if we could let the man take over. He prayed for God to keep Kennedy and to heal him. I actually felt quite angry that we'd been instructed to come. After they left, we continued to sit and pray. Kennedy sat up when we went to leave. He looked at me like he had a fever. He wasn't as bright as he had seemed when I met him in the past." Unquote. So they bring him in and Brother Pete and Brother Mika to pray, and then the father comes in with his own pastor to do his own thing.
Interesting.
So basically that's what we get from that, and the fact that he acknowledges that he looks like he has a fever, he's just not doing well.
Do you think that whatever is inside Kennedy caught that anger and
that's why he sat up?
Yeah.
Like it gave him that
Yeah.
That's very interesting. I think that takes a not so creepy moment and turns into a very creepy moment.
Yeah.
Where it's just almost like a win.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
Got you.
Even if the father, even if Kenneth had all the best intentions of I'm going to get the person I think's best for my son, it's still just feeling that rage from a spiritual person. Yeah. Creepy. So despite hours of prayer and multiple sessions, it seemed to have little to no impact on Kennedy's state. His anger and his violence only increased. He threatened to attack his mother, and he actually bit his father. And that was the final straw. That was enough for Kenneth. He believed for 100% fact that his son was possessed by a demon. He went there. There was no going back. So since the doctor did no good, and taking him to a local minister seemed futile, Kenneth took matters into his own hands. His cure for Kennedy was restraint and consistent prayer.
Not sure that's the right answer.
Here is a quote from Kennedy's brother, Colin. Quote, "It's clear that the thing was in him. What we believed was a demon because it was not natural. It was clearly trying to kill him. We had to restrain him for himself. It was clear if we didn't restrain him, he could have tried to harm people in our family, unquote. So it's getting pretty intense.
Yeah.
What would be your thought process in this? You're trying to protect your family, like your family outside of Kennedy, because he could harm them, and also protect Kennedy from himself. You took him to the doctor. Now, obviously, they took him to the doctor very early on. Like taking someone to the doctor after saying, yeah, he thinks there's a snake in his stomach, the beast, like the mark of the beast, and he's biting us. That's very different than like, I think he has a sore throat.
It is.
But regardless, that ship sailed. And then, getting different ministers and things like that. Like what would you do in the situation?
I guess just like the battle plan that the father, Kenneth, has come up with, it just doesn't seem to be what the answer is to me. I guess I would probably lean more heavily into, so I grew up Catholic, right? So I'd probably lean more heavily into that religious element of it. So try to get more priests, more holy smoke, all that good stuff.
The holy smoke and stuff.
Yeah, they have incense, the incense. I like the smell. It's nice.
Maybe it'll coax the snake out with a good smell.
Hey.
Get a mouse, put it by his head. That would be like a bad horror movie, but also like a scene where it's like he looks like he's choking and like the snake head just comes out, grabs it, and just pulls it back in his mouth. Yeah. That's like the
that's a little jump in the shark, huh?
Well, okay. The last possession exorcism story we did, you were talking about her throwing up like random items from Walmart.
I did. Yeah, I remember that was pretty crazy too.
That one was a very intense story. But anyway, back to Kennedy. So the father's put his foot down and he's like, none of that worked. We're going to restrain you and we're going to pray.
We're getting into some dangerous territory with restraining people in 2016.
Well, they placed him on his bed and they used cable ties, rope, and handcuffs.
Oh.
He yelled, he screamed, he barked, he growled like an animal. And for 3 entire days, about 72 hours, a little under, this is how Kennedy lived his life.
That sucks.
The family spent hours reciting prayers over his body, hoping that this makeshift exorcism would cure him of this demonic entity inside of him. And slowly, as he's laying there, Kennedy's losing strength in his body, little by little. He becomes delirious. He becomes incredibly dehydrated. And also, remember, one of his issues was breathing problems, and those only intensified. So on the 3rd day, Kennedy experienced what they considered a seizure. Also, his breathing problems heightened to the point that one of the brothers had to call a paramedic.
Yeah.
So naturally, when the paramedics showed up, they were a little shocked by what they saw, considering Kennedy was tied up. But they were even more shocked by the circumstances of the situation. Kennedy was laying there, dead, and his family was trying to resurrect him by chanting and shouting prayers over his body. They were singing, and Colin had his arms out in front of him, and he was screaming, "Kennedy, I command you to rise in the name of Jesus." And they were also chanting, quote, "We thank you because his soul will be returned from the power of the grave. We thank you because his spirit has returned onto himself. God, you have returned his spirit back into the body you gave him," unquote. So the paramedics took swift action and they released Kennedy's body from the restraints. And it ended up being discovered that cardiac arrest was the official cause of death.
Yeah. Did he have any like asthma or anything?
They didn't say.
Okay.
They also noted that he had marks all over his body, including bruises, scratches, and even bite marks. Now, they didn't say if he was biting himself. They left it pretty vague at bite marks. But also, Kenneth and the 4 brothers all had minor injuries too.
But not the mom.
No, not the mom. Kenneth pretty much ordered the brothers to keep him restrained no matter how much force you have to use.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was no holds barred. Whatever you have to do to keep him restrained on that bed, do it. So there's probably some...
this got bad.
Yeah, there were probably some... Well, obviously, but yeah, there were probably some altercations that happened. And so when the police were investigating the home, they discovered a note in Kennedy's mother's room, Josephine, which read, quote, "If you feel your son is under a spell, pick up earth and throw it to north, south, east, west for 4 days. After, there will be an encounter," unquote.
Who's in it from?
Josephine.
Oh, okay.
His mom wrote it. So not long after the police investigated the home, the family was arrested on charges of manslaughter, false imprisonment, in causing or allowing the death of a vulnerable adult.
Yeah. I thought this might come to that.
Yeah.
Because this is modern and you can't do that.
You can't. This isn't the 1800s. This is 1850.
Yeah. This isn't the Corky Salem witch trials.
Yeah. Throw him in the water. See what happens.
Yeah.
Well, did you change his pillow? Yeah. So during the trial, the prosecutor, Tom Little, was quoted as saying, quote, his own family decided that because he had become and remained unwell, he should be restrained with cable ties, rope, and handcuffs. The 999, which is
English 911.
Yes, they're English. It's their 911. The 999 call that was eventually made for expert assistance was too late. The family put misguided religious beliefs about this young man being possessed by a demon or evil spirits before the obvious and common sense conclusion that he needed help and did not need to be restrained. Whether this was some form of exorcism will be a matter for you in due course. In short, the Ive family took the law into their own hands. The paramedics were told that for 3 days, Kennedy had been behaving abnormally and been violent and aggressive. Collins states that by August 18th, he looked weak and complained about a seed in his stomach. He stated that Kennedy believed he had a demon inside his body waiting to kill him. The family stated that they had been required to restrain Kennedy physically. He had subsequently developed breathing difficulties, and as a result, they had called the emergency services. Unquote. So Kenneth, the father, he stayed firm during the trial and claimed that they did everything in the best interest of Kennedy, and they had to restrain him for his own good. He told jurors that his sons took shifts watching Kennedy, and they were given permission from Kenneth himself to use overwhelming force if necessary. He also refuted that they had any association with cults, or secret societies, or anything like that, and played no part in how they behaved with Kennedy. Prosecutors painted it as a medieval torture session, pointing out that Kennedy had been restrained for close to 72 hours and treated like an animal or a detainee. So what do you think the outcome of this was?
The trial?
Where do you think it goes from here?
My guess is that someone's getting locked up, someone's getting parole, maybe a couple of people are getting locked up. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure I think that the family's not getting away.
So I don't know how long the trial was, but the jury took 4 days. So they deliberated for 4 days.
Yeah.
And they concluded that all 7 family members were cleared of charges.
Really?
And this is 2016.
Really?
Yeah.
Cleared.
Because there were many articles I found where it's like trial ongoing, trial still in progress.
Yeah.
And then it's just the family. And I didn't find did you knock?
No.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
It might have been
a cable?
Yeah, I think it was a cable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably a cable.
Are you sure you weren't knocking your hand?
That wasn't me, dude.
That
wasn't me. That wasn't me.
Okay.
You want to take a minute?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know what the jurors I didn't see their official statement in any of the articles, but yeah, everything, it all lined up that they all got away scot-free, which is crazy.
That is pretty wild. I did not see that coming.
No, it's insane. So there's a lot to unpack here, and we're going to do it in the discussion. All right, before we get to the discussion, we like to stop the episode and thank our newest patrons who, as of the recording of this here podcast in my attic, talking about spooky stuff, hearing weird knockings in the recording, is Ashley. What's up, Ashley? We appreciate you joining our Patreon. There's so much bonus content that we talk about every single week, every single month. Charlie, if there is one thing that you would love to highlight from our Patreon, what would it be?
So something I really want to showcase about our Patreon is that we have this thing called Google Meet, where we meet up once a month and we just talk to people who want to talk to us either about the show, about their lives, about our lives, about what's going on, some crazy stuff.
I always enjoy your icebreakers that you bring to the table.
I do bring icebreakers because I don't like being awkward, and they help me not be awkward.
Although sometimes the questions are awkward. But I also, fun fact, we also, for the people in our dedicated tier and the not tier, we do our giveaway during the Google Meet.
We do.
So you can see us pull the names live from my McDonald's Nick Chubb cup.
And if you show up, there might be a little bit extra for you.
Maybe. You'll have to show up and find out. But that's a good one. I would like to highlight something that is, it's biannual. It's going to happen twice a year. We try to do it every month, and that was ambitious. And then we put it on the shelf for a long time, and it's back, and it is theatrical readings. One of my big inspirations, not necessarily for this podcast, content-wise, yes, but not in the way we do it, but No Sleep. Like I always say, they don't really need our shout-outs.
Right, or Ghost in the Burbs, also a story podcast.
Yeah. But just, it's heavy on it's fictional. It's fictional. It's a story. It's heavy on the sound effects and the music. It's a narrative. We're going to put out 2 of those a year. And fun fact, one of them is coming out this month, August 2023. So I'm excited for that. But there's so much more. There's quizzes. There's games. We watch movies together. Like Charlie said, we hang out in Google Meets. We respond to your social media questions. Wow, the Browns and the Eagles just ended in a tie. I guess it's preseason, so no one cares. 18-18, that's a gross score. I just got that update, sorry. What else is there, Charlie? There's a voicemail clip that
there's a lot of things going on.
Mailbag, behind-the-scenes stuff with us, director's cuts, us watching short horror films and responding to it.
Oh, yeah, that's new.
So much stuff out there, so much stuff. And if you're caught up on the main content, the main podcast, and you want a little bit more, that's waiting for you. With that said, let's get back to the Exorcism of Kennedy Ife.
You were looking us off into space. I was like, how is he seeing this score?
My phone.
I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, DTR looks good. So, the main thing is, we were kind of talking about this for a second. I feel like this would be covered by a lot of true crime podcasts, and I don't listen to a lot of true crime podcasts, so I don't know what people out there are saying or conclusions are coming to. And a lot of people might actually know this from the news because this is within the last 10 years.
Big case, yeah.
So I guess the big thing is, I think we can all agree that the family did not, even if they had the best intentions, they did not do what was the best for Kennedy.
No, I think they made some bad judgment calls.
I'm not questioning their love for him. I'm not questioning whether they, their intentions, what they thought they did was,
right.
They were doing it for him, but I think looking at it objectively, obviously
hindsight.
Yeah, it didn't. So when I'm asking you this, I'm not saying do you think they killed him? Even though, what I'm saying is, do you think because if he was possessed, maybe what they did actually, so even if his body's gone, they might argue that they saved his soul, right? Like, I'm trying to make sure that is acknowledged.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give them that, maybe that every juror must have came to that conclusion.
I guess
his soul saved, so,
yeah.
And, he was, I loved him as an IT guy, but, so who knows what the jury thought? And I want to front load. I feel like things can get pretty heavy against the family here in our conversation. So I want to front load it by saying that I feel like they had good intentions.
Yeah, no ill intentions.
And if they truly believe that his soul is saved, regardless of his body, and if they're thinking eternal life elsewhere and he's in heaven and not hell, then for them, that's probably a win because they were singing. Like, I didn't go into, like, when they were chanting, like somebody was playing an instrument, like they were like almost praising around his body.
It's an interesting thought. This happened not that long ago.
Yeah.
And
7 years.
There's a good chance some of that family could hear this.
Oh, there's probably, like, if you were involved in something big, people, like athletes are always putting their name in stuff.
Yeah.
People search themselves if they go viral or things like that. So yes, there is a chance that, aren't you happy you didn't do any dumb British accents? And I'm not calling British accents dumb. I'm just going.
The ones I do can be very stupid.
Everyone's Cockney.
I was planning. See, you just did it. I was planning on not doing that.
No, I guess, but does that change the way you're going to react to this?
No.
Because we do listener submissions.
Yeah, no.
And almost guaranteed they listen unless we're so far behind on.
I have my what I'm going to give it.
Okay, so I just wanted to preface intentions. They could truly believe they saved his soul, and maybe they did. okay, stepping back, it kind of comes to, was he actually possessed?
Yeah.
Or did they essentially kill a man that was suffering from some type of ailment, mental illness?
Right. And also there's the culture difference too. We're not British. We're not from that area. We don't know.
No, I don't know
what
anything
they were
about
practicing. You know, we don't know any of that stuff.
No.
I guess I would go, ultimately I'm going with the viable, that this could happen.
So you're going viable that he was possessed.
Yeah, I think it's viable that it's the case. I'm not going to go with a believable just because there were a limited number of witnesses to what actually happened. It's mostly inside the family. Even some of the quotes came from the family. There's only like one outside quote, right? And but I could see what happened. And it's a scary scenario. And I could see why they were driven to what they did. I don't think they went about it the right way, obviously. Someone ended up dying, but maybe that was the goal of the evil, is to not let this guy make it.
I think it's crazy how quickly it happened.
Yeah.
Like the deterioration, and not necessarily the 72 hours, but the time leading up to it.
Like a week and a half.
Yeah, like that seems like, I guess I'm not a mental health expert. I said like that. I'm like, maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Like I'm not a mental health expert. But like something an onset like that quickly, that rapidly, because the deterioration started happening before they tied him up.
Yeah.
Now, what if it really was based on sleep? Like, what if he had a sore throat that caused him to not sleep? But like, I don't think sleep, like irritable, things like that. But here's another thing: is like there's also internal bias.
Yeah,
like the
absolutely.
family was very religious, and if he when he's saying stuff like 666, I have the mark of the beast. Like it seems like he already was leaning into the idea that he was possessed.
Yeah, he was buying into it.
But then what's also interesting is it seems like at one point he's very conscious of it. He's like, mark of the beast, please forgive me, God. But then you'd almost think that he would have went along with being restrained, right? Like nobody wants to be restrained, but I feel like that the Kennedy from the scene, and I'm talking about like a film, the Kennedy from the scene where he's like, forgive me, there's a serpent inside of me.
Yeah.
It seems like that Kennedy in that state of mind would maybe almost be in favor of being tied up.
Unless there's like varying levels of possession at that point, maybe he's fully gone.
But that's what I mean. I'm saying if he's not being possessed,
yeah,
I feel like he would maybe think it was the best thing for him too. But it almost seems like there was a shift in his own mindset too. But it's just, I guess there's the internal bias that I don't know if he ever considered it was just a mental illness thing, or if he just immediately started thinking maybe it was demonic.
Yeah.
But I mean, because even from the throat thing, it wasn't just like I have a sore throat. He's like, it feels like there's something moving around, which then turns into this snake, this seed inside his stomach. Like there's so many different jumps, and it's crazy. Like it's kind of easy if you believe that this was a possession. There's pretty much everything at your disposal to verify it in your head.
Yeah.
Like it makes sense. Like it enters through the mouth. He feels in the throat. He feels in the stomach. He starts being really sick. He gets violent. They have to restrain him. And it just, if you believe that this was a possession, I feel like you kind of have everything you need.
Maybe it's the hour. Maybe it's the weather. Maybe it's that we were freaked out earlier. But I'm ready to put this to bed.
Are you getting freaked out?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I'll be honest. When I was researching this and reading through it, I was leaning heavy skeptical. Oh, and you know what's also a very interesting factor is the jury they cleared them.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel like the jury knew the family and thought they were very sane and almost could buy into what Kenneth was doing.
I don't know how British law is different than, because if in American law, if you know the people, you're out.
Maybe they don't. Maybe they knew of them. I don't know. Something that they said made it seem like, unless they were all religious and were like, obviously.
Well, maybe there's just like the community is aware because of how prevalent they were in the church. I don't know.
I just like part of me wants to go skeptical because I kind of feel like the family was biased and kind of messed up. And I don't mean messed up like they were messed up. I mean like the actions that they did.
They did a bad thing.
Well, yeah, they messed up. Not they're messed up. But I like this all happened
the elements
in a couple.
are there, though.
It happened like a couple weeks.
And all those elements are there.
Unless it was like also like him hyping himself up into it.
It's hard to, you can see both really easily, right?
I don't even have like a good, like, I guess there's schizophrenia, but like, there's so many different, like, you can't just classify, like, let me open, I think they're on the DSM-5 now. I think that's on the 5.
That's right.
But you can't open it up and be like, okay, he has a dash of this, a dash of that, and close the book. There's like too many things. Like the sore throat leads to him breaking down, not sleeping, not eating, getting pale, feeling something in his throat, feeling something in his stomach. Obviously has enough strength where he can harm them while being restrained. I was very heavy skeptical until actually doing the episode, and I'm landing on viable. I'm definitely not going believable,
right?
And I'm not going unbelievable. This might be one when we were talking on Patreon about director's cuts. I look forward to listening to this one again, maybe in a different environment, less creeped out.
Yeah,
really don't think this like if this is true in a possession, it is terrifying. But like it doesn't. I feel like we've done scarier stuff, but it is very freaky.
Yeah,
it is very freaky. But I'll join you, and I will say viable. So that is our episode on the Exorcism of Kennedy Ife. Do you need to take a break before we?
No, I'm okay. I'm good.
Okay. Were you feeling something?
Yeah, I'm cool. I'm good.
Okay. So this is the after party event here. If you want to stick around for what else is going down,
I'm excited to hear this. This is pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's coincidentally very crazy. So my good friend Ethan, who y'all might know from my potential skinwalker encounter, episode 100.
Is that number 100?
Yep,
it's a good one.
Very easy to remember. He was the lead in a musical where I'm from in Ashtabula. It's called Once, if you're familiar.
I'm not.
Okay.
That's fine.
I'm not here to break down a musical. But he was a lead, and I worked it out where I was able to go up there for a night and check it out.
Yeah.
So I did what everyone else did during admission. I pulled my phone out. I'm not the person to get up and get snacks during intermission.
No.
Like I just don't feel like leaving my seat. I know some people get up, they walk around.
I did that in Cleveland one time when I saw a play, but that was it.
Yeah, I just normally just sit there. It's just like, I don't know. So I pull out my phone and I go to our email and I saw something, and it's like, you know how you can see like a part, like a section of the text before you get to it?
Yeah, the preview.
Yeah, and it was like, it mentioned something local. Like I didn't get a full taste on it, but I saw it was local, and I was tripping reading this. So I'm going to read the email for you now. You ready?
Oh yeah, I'm ready.
Quote, "Hello, my name is Colette, and I'm listening to your podcast with my friend Steph. We started listening to your Skinwalker episode on our way back from a road trip. We were surprised to learn that Tyler's from Ashtabula, Ohio, because we both are from Ashtabula, Ohio. You mentioned North Kingsville, which is where I'm actually really from. Like it's like when you say Cleveland, but it's like Lakewood.
Yeah,
like Ashtabula, but it's North Kingsville.
I'm from outside Cleveland, really from Garfield Heights. Yeah.
Well, it's easier just to say Akron, Cleveland, Ashtabula. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned North Kingsville, and our hearts stopped because my friend Stephanie also has a Skinwalker story from Ashtabula. She says one night she was driving home with her mom, and this was around 2009. She can't remember the name of the road, but it was closer to Saybrook area in Ashtabula. She saw a grayish, blackish kind of fuzzy thing run across the road. The thing was moving weird and fast, and in a way it was not focused and looked really out of focus and fuzzy. She said she knew it was bigger than a dog and bigger than a coyote. She remembers thinking maybe it could have been a wolf, but that was weird because she knows we don't really have wolves in Ashtabula. And on my end, I remember one night I was living in Kingsville, and I was letting my dog out, and he was off his leash. So while he was doing his business, I heard the sound of a woman's scream, which at the time I wrote off as a coyote or something like that, which may be true, but I know the skinwalkers can mimic a woman's call or a scream to lure you in. I just remember being really scared and yelling for my dog to come back and locking the door behind me, not really thinking anything of it. I just add that to yours and Steph's story. Anyway, really enjoyed the podcast and hope you find her story interesting."
That Yeah.
Anytime anything runs in front of you and it's just not like clearly, like today I had a cat, a black cat, very clearly a cat go out and it's fine. I didn't hit it.
Yeah.
Very clearly a cat go in front of me. Last week I had a deer very clearly go in front of me. I have raccoons. Like sometimes it's like you might not know exactly what animal it is, but you see a shape and you see the movement and just like it's almost like even if you can't mentally process what animal it is, it's like your body reacts to it like that's some animal. Like the only time I like jump or get anxious is if it's very close. Like sometimes a squirrel will like sprint from a front yard and you got to slam on your brakes and it just like stops, goes on its back feet. It's like you, and then it goes the other way.
Yeah.
And then you're like, whatever. I feel like in regards to Steph's experience, there's something innate. Like even if you can't perfectly describe what you're seeing, or if you describe like fuzzy, black, gray thing, you're like, oh, whatever. It's not so much what you see in my experience. It's how it makes you feel.
Yeah.
And I've had the experience of both seeing something I couldn't explain that made me feel terrified and seeing something I maybe perfectly couldn't explain, but you could be like, maybe it was this animal or this animal, but you don't feel anything with it. You're like, it is. I can't identify it. That's okay. I didn't hit it. I'm going on with my life. Versus, what is this thing in front of me? It's making my body feel like I got goosebumps and just like cold, you know? And I think that's what she felt. So maybe it was something like that. Maybe it was something else. I mean, when me and Ethan had our experience, we both thought it was an alien or it felt like something like that. But just to put you back in my scene, I'm sitting in Ashtabula, which I'm normally not in Ashtabula. I'm sitting in Ashtabula watching Ethan in a show who was in my story while reading an email from someone from Ashtabula who listened to the podcast and had an experience also in Ashtabula.
Yeah.
Like, I was tripping. It was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing if I read it here, you know, but to read it.
Because there's separation, but you're in the area.
I wasn't scared or anything like that. It was just like the coincidence of like, and it wasn't like I was seeing someone else or with my family. I saw my family, but it was like in that moment, I was essentially spending time with Ethan.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in the crowd. And he didn't know I was there, which is crazy because I got coffee with him before it. He thought I just got coffee and left. So when I saw him after the show, he's like, "Did you just get here?" Like, no. I saw you 3 hours ago. But that's neither here nor there.
He's funny.
But it was like, I was like, I have to talk about this. Like, it's crazy.
It's pretty wild. It's scary to me that there might be this thing in that area.
Well,
it's such a wooded area.
Also, my experience was like 2012, 2013. This is 2009. So
I know it's earlier.
Yeah, so I think we're good now. I don't know. I'm not there anymore.
Knock on wood.
Yeah. So that's the side story for fun. Thanks for
fun.
Thanks for sending that. Well, they're fine. It was 10 years ago. So
yeah, they're okay.
Yeah. The woman screaming. I've been to Ashtabula. It could have been a woman screaming. But
yeah, I've been around.
I guess it's how a lot of it is. I think how it makes you feel. Yes. I think if you trust your instinct, like if you just watch a scary movie and you walk outside and you hear something and you freak out, okay, you're a little biased or inclined to feel that way. But if something something out of the normal happens, abnormal, if something out of the ordinary happens or even if it's ordinary and you get that feeling, I think more often than not, trust it. And I don't know. So that's what I chalk that up to. But if you're enjoying this episode and you've enjoyed previous episodes and you'd like to let us know, if you're on Apple, please leave a 5-star review and your thoughts.
Say something like, "Oh man, that's great."
That's great. We will read it and respond to it to each other because we can't respond on there. And if you're listening on Spotify, you can leave a 5-star rating on the podcast in its entirety, or in this specific episode, or most of our episodes specifically, you can comment what you like, don't like, think, thoughts, theories, suggestions, specifically.
Don't be afraid to think your thoughts.
Think your thoughts out loud in written form on each individual episode, and we'll read them. And I'd like to see what people think about the episode. So do that if you feel inclined.
And if you're enjoying this episode, you reviewed it, you told us what you thought, we appreciate it, and you want to hear more, you've all caught up, we've got plenty going on Patreon. There are so many games, activities, ways to get involved in the community on Patreon. It's a whole situation, and we'd love for you to join.
And people have been getting their enamel pins, and they're sharing them, and they're awesome.
Yeah, very
So
cool.
if you're looking for a shirt, enamel pin, and hoodie, the Not tier, the newest tier, is for you. I'm also just one more quick shout out. Anybody who may have stopped by on Porch Rocker, thank you for the support. Anyone who discovered us at Porch Rocker, and maybe this is the first episode you're listening to, welcome. And thank you for checking out our booth, if you can call it that, at Porch Rocker. We appreciate you. But thank you, everybody, for listening. As always, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Charlie.
And catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre,
A podcast as bizarre as you are.